And Jacob's brothers perceived that their father had died, and they said, "Perhaps Joseph will harbor hate against us, and he will return to us that evil that we bestowed upon him." And they commanded to Joseph, saying, "Let your father commanded before he died, saying, so listen, Joseph, please lift up, please, this deed of your brothers and their sin for the evil that they bestowed upon you. And now don't count it against them, the servants of your father's God." And Joseph wept at their words. And they came before him, their brother, and they prostrated and bowed down to him. And they said, "We're willing to be your slaves." And Joseph said to them, "Don't fear, for am I God?" Or am I instead of God, literally? Or in other words, am I judging you? So, and you thought it for evil, but God thought it for good, so that as of this very day it would save a brave people. And now don't fear, I will sustain you and your children. And he comforted them, and he spoke words to their heart.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet shehayei olam natan v'ktaboneinu. Baruch atah
Adonai notei haTorah. Amen.
You can tell I'm looking for somebody. Oh, Charles. Judah. Bavakasha, everyone, please. We're at the end of Genesis, and so before we put Torah away, okay, here. Please stand up. The Sota Torah Hashem Moshe L'nei Yisrael Ki Adonai Binat Moshe. Which book?
Genesis.
Genesis. Excellent. Good. Okay, so here we've got this is the version that's written out. Joseph's brothers were aware that their father was dead, and they said, perhaps Joseph will hate us, and he will surely repay us for all the evil we did. So they instructed Joseph to be told, your father commanded before his death, saying, thus you shall say to Joseph, oh, please. Seriously, those are the trope marks. So please, basically, kindly forgive the sinful deed of your brother, and for the sin they have done you evil. Now please forgive the sin of your servants of your father's God. Joseph wept when they spoke to him. So my guess is at this point, remember what did they do to him? They sold him into slavery, right? But the good news was, okay, he ended up in Potiphar's house. Potiphar's wife tried to seduce him. He ended up in prison, and the long and the short of that was, ultimately, he ended up in a really high position in Pharaoh's house, right? And saving many people due to his dreams about 7 years of plenty, then 7 years of not so plenty. So here he is, his father has now died, right? The bones are taken back, and now his brothers are like, oh, wait a second, this guy is like really powerful in Egypt. We did do that thing to him, didn't we? Yeah. Okay, so, and when he's crying, I'm sure they're wondering what's happening. You know, they're getting together. It's after the father has already died and been buried, and now they're a little worried. So they go to him and they say, we are ready to be your slaves. But Joseph says, fear not, for am I instead of God? You intended evil, God intended good. In order to do, it is clear as this day that a great people be kept alive. So that's the literal translation. So now, fear not, I will sustain you and your children. So he comforted them, and he spoke to them in their hearts. So that's the piece that we currently have. So this is a fundamental principle of Judaism, right? You shall love your fellow as yourself, and usually not sell them into slavery. So what is Joseph thinking, right? Fear not, for am I instead of God? Really? Am I to judge you? No, God does that. That's what he's saying to him. Although you intended evil, God intended good. He's looking at his brothers saying, really, it was intended for the best. You were just God's agents. You erred in thinking I was your enemy, but God used your actions to bring about good. God used what you did for good purpose. So really, this is the best case scenario, right? An enemy sees their error. His brothers say, oh my gosh, we really screwed up. We're so sorry. They work to correct it. They say, look, we're willing to be your slaves. You know, what is it that we do? We sold you into slavery. Now we're willing to take that upon ourselves. They become an ally. Ultimately, Joseph says to them, look, it's okay. You know, water over the dam, it's already done. It's okay. And if we're in the right space, Joseph allowed that to happen. He didn't hold a grudge. He spoke to their heart. And he also said, I will sustain you and your children. Right? He's really, truly letting bygones be bygones. Forgive it. Forgive it. So, remember we have this 4-session class dealing with enemies. So, here we have the plug for the class. This is the book. Get it. If you want to join us in the class, it would be really wonderful to have you. So it's a 4-session class from 6:30 to 8. Sarah Yehudit Schneider is the woman who authored this book. It's a fabulous book about a spiritually productive method of dealing with enemies. How do we do it? You know, God willing, it would always be as good as Joseph and his brothers. It would always, you know, be this kind of a sweet sort of ending where everybody is like everything is forgiven and forgotten. So sometimes it doesn't always happen that way. But we'll read about the Parmono Rebbe. This book is drawn from his works. He lived in the 1700s, and it's a fabulous sort of walk yourself through this path. Joseph spoke to their heart. That was the last piece that I read. He spoke to their heart. And words that from the heart enter the heart, right? So serve God with a whole heart. And remember, this is our piece from last Shabbat. Whatever you do or whatever you think, you get better at doing. Yes, Mr. Of course.
Earlier in the portion you mentioned embalming.
Yes.
Okay, now I'm assuming that was done because it was pre-silent.
You know, it's an interesting question. We have those issues of embalming, which we currently don't hold by in our tradition. So yes, it's an interesting one. Okay, so another way of dealing with enemies, sometimes things don't always go so well, like the case of Yosef and his brothers. Sometimes they go like the case of King David. And our Haftorah portion this week is from 1 Kings. These are David's final words to Solomon. Okay, I'm going the way of all the earth. Be strong, be a man. Keep the charge of the Lord your God. Walk in God's ways, laws, commandments, and rules. And by the way, you know what Joab, the son of Zeruiah, did to me? What he did to the two commanders of the Israel forces, Abner, son of Ner, and Amasa, son of Yeter. He killed them, shedding blood of war in peacetime, staining the girdle of his loins and the sandals on his feet with the blood of war. So act in accordance with your wisdom and see that his white hair does not go down to Sheol in peace. What's he saying on his deathbed? Get a hold of this guy and yeah, right? That's what he's advising his son to do. So David's reason, okay, maybe he had reason to actually have this kind of like thing of justice to go up. He suspected perhaps that he had killed his son Absalom against his specific orders, and he had also had words after that, murder of those two that were mentioned, which happened to be close associates of David's. So what to do about enemies? Again, come to the class.
You may have to move the class because
We'll have so many people.
no, the books are not available. I looked online.
Really?
Yeah, they're on that word.
Wow.
So if one of you good shop at books or something,
Well,
Okay.
what websites have you checked? I can probably.
the link that.
The link was on Amazon. So we'll talk
I
about this
can-
later,
I
but
can
we'll be
research.
helpful to kind of like work it out. If you're having difficulty getting in, let me know. We could actually maybe talk, speaking of which, this author, she is like a biology major, went to school in Denver, and then went to Jerusalem, currently lives in Jerusalem as an Orthodox woman. So she is very interesting in her perspectives and really quite fascinating. So she does a really wonderful job of blending the Korbanah Rebbe's actual words with modern psychology, kind of like a Kabbalistic sort of thinking for Judaism. So those kinds of things. It's kind of like Joseph's thoughts on, you know, what happened, what you did, you thought was bad, but God intended it for good. It's that notion or that concept we call hashgacha pratit, or divine providence. So that which occurs is hopefully, ultimately, God willing, as a blessing, something that is, you know, maybe polishing us up on the inside. Okay, so we need to move back to healing. So while we still actually have Torah out, we're on page 371. Do we have any birthdays for? Oh, that's right, Sagan. Of course we do. Julie. predicate form stuff, predicate form stuff, a predicate form stuff, so dear. Oh, you happy birthday, you know. Awesome. And we have David Lawrence, and I guess there's going to be others who are going to And we believe in the healing power of prayer. So we sing an Ishbera for those names mentioned, and perhaps for some of the names that we have the source of strength, who was the ones before us. Help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Ishevera, Ivotenu, Mekora Braka, Navotenu, as those in need of healing, with refuah, Shelema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. Refuge 374. Please rise. It's high evening, the power taking off, the throne of heaven, shout, the prophet have come, dark they know, the body protect, shout, Elena? Look at 586. Yes. Alleluia, Adon Hakol, Taken love and separation, Shalom, Son of Abraham, the love of you, Nishmahot Adamah, Shalom, Son of Abraham, the Aleinu, the Kol Habona, Lanafu Morim, Nishavim Morim, Livnei Melech, Malkei Hamlachim, Arbadosh Baruch Hu. From the bottom of 533, please read together in English. The light of life is a finite flame, like the Shabbat candles. Life is kindled, it burns, it glows, it is radiant with warmth and beauty, but soon it fades, its substance is consumed, and it is no more. In light we see, in light we are seen. The flames dance and our lives are full. There is an end to the flames. We see no more, and are no more seen. Yet we do not despair, and we are more than ever, slowly fading into darkness. In our lives we give life. Something of us can never die. We move in the eternal cycle of darkness and death, of life and death. Tonight, we're saying Kaddish for the bishop, wife of worship, Samuel Kursman, father of John Kursman, Denny Kursman, mother of Don Kursman, Stanley Silvers, mother of Aaron, father of Aaron Kursman, Philip Burstein, father of Aaron Roberts, Susan Lincoln's father, William Weiss, Selma Appel, mother of Nicole Appel, and Ernest Redmond, father. Are there any others that we should add to this list?
Members of the United States military that carries in such
What page back there? Yitvadah Shnei Rala, Rama Divra Krikute, Yamli Lakute, Vayekom Yemekom, Vayekom Israel, Bhagavad Islam Hari, Shnei Rala Meorah, Yitvarach Yishtabach Yitvahar Yitvamach Yitvaseh Yigadar Yitalel Yitvalal Shnei Yishah Ve'elam Yinkol Yitvata Shivata Shivata Ve'nefata V'mirat Ve'elam Amen Yehei Shalom Rabba Shemaya V'vayim B'lev Yalko Yisrael Amen Say Shalom B'mo'ah Say Shalom Israel, Sim Shalom, Sim, Sim, Sim Shalom, Sim, Sim, Sim Shalom, Tova Ubaraka. Sim, Sim, Sim Shalom, Sim, Sim, Sim Shalom, Sim, Sim, Sim Shalom, Tova Ubaraka. Ya la 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 ya la la, ya la 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 ya la la, ya la la ya la. So, I think we're ready perhaps for the wine and grape juice. Announcements. Oh. Okay, so remember, we've got this class coming up in February, right? February 4th to 25th from 6:30 in the evening to 8 p.m. and Saturday nights during the month of February. On February 12th at 10 a.m. at Emmanuel, there's a community study. If you haven't read the book, The Sabbath, this is a golden opportunity. Even if you've read it, there is so many beautiful, if you've ever read Heschel, he's such the poet. I'll just read one little piece from Heschel's book here. To observe the Sabbath is to celebrate the coronation of the day in the spiritual wonderland of time. The air of which we inhale, we call it a delight. Call the Sabbath a delight to the soul and a delight to the body. So this is just a little foretaste of the Sabbath and the study that we'll be doing. Tu B'Shvat Seder, February 7th at Rev's house. On March 10th, we have a community forum party at the Atlantis.
Thank you.
Starts at 6:30, and the J101 class is starting again in January. Please RSVP to me if you haven't already and you'd like to come to the J101 class. Community forum party. Community forum party. Yeah. So we need more volunteers for tzitzit tying. Oh, good. We got 2 more recruited. That's awesome. And now I would like to do a kind of like a thank you. Barbara Mayer initiated and did the lion's share of work in adoptive families, donating both her time and her money. She did an amazing job, and we had like a passel of things to take to this truckloads full. Bikes and jackets. Yes, I need one of those, please. Bikes and jackets and Legos and all sorts of really wonderful and fun stuff. So in addition to that, Barbara worked on selecting the material, cutting and ironing of the talits. She's made fashionable kippot. And if you haven't seen Barbara's work,
Oh, they're gorgeous.
we may have talked her into the line of mitzvahs. Okay, and she's also, for this past year, been an incredible newsletter helper. She like works on getting the newsletter prepped and all the details on it. So she's eye to detail, and she's really done a wonderful job. And the board and I would like to thank Barbara in a very special way by telling her and providing her with a physical example. She is such a good egg. For the musician board. And before we finish it with our like awesomeness things, thank you, Diane Black, for your awesome window art that you did at the SBCA. This is a sample of it here. She did the whole tribes for Hanukkah, in addition to doing Hanukkah in the center of it. So it was really spectacular and very, very nicely done. So that's it. We're on page 122.
ויבוקר יום השישי, ויקולו השמיים
Baruch atah Elokeinu melech haolam, Borei Puri Hagafen.
Baruch atah Adonai Elokeinu melech haolam, asher kitshenu b'mitzvotav, v'rata banu, v'shabbat kasha